The Creative Coliseum would like to begin by acknowledging that we are on treaty land, referred to as Treaty 4 territory, and that all people here are beneficiaries of this treaty. Treaty 4 encompasses the lands of the Cree, Saulteaux, Dakota, Nakota, Lakota, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect and honor the treaties that were made on all territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we are committed to moving forward in partnership with Indigenous nations in the spirit of reconciliation and collaboration.
Welcome to today's episode of the Creative Coliseum, where everything's happening live on the fly.
Everything's on the fly, but it gets edited after the fact, so you won't see that in the actual version. Anyway, yes, I'm David.
I'm Allysia.
And this is episode,
Nine
already?
Yep.
And you are back in person.
Yes.
You are live.
Yes, I was in New York for a month, and you saw me from my 200 square foot studio apartment from the last couple episodes, so it's nice to be back in, an equivalent space, but a much nicer setup here.
So I will share this little anecdotal bit first. I had planned to actually use a Seinfeld apartment background while we were Zoom chatting. That was my goal. Because you were in an apartment in New York, and I wanted to also be in a New York apartment. But that would have given away your location a little. It would dox you.
Yes, doxing. So anyways, today we are going to be having a conversation with Alex from Alex Paula Artistry, and we're going to be talking about the art of beauty.
So before we talk about being beautiful, let's look at something else that's beautiful. Here we go.
What is it? Hey there, this is Allysia from Piano TV. I'm a piano teacher, and I've got a bunch of videos up on YouTube if you want to check those out. I also host free monthly webinars on a variety of piano-related topics and make courses about learning piano, whether you're a complete beginner or if you're an intermediate level student. If you are interested in staying up to date with the things I've got going on, you can visit pianotv.net and join my mailing list, where you will also receive a free ebook on how to practice the piano. The courses that I offer open for registration in August, and they run from September to April, where you'll join a group of like-minded individuals and receive personal feedback from myself. Whether you're 29 or 92, it's never too late to learn. Wasn't that a beautiful ad?
It was beautiful. Sorry, my corniness just can't be contained, guys. So here we are. Hello, Alex.
Hello.
Say hello to the world.
Hi. So one thing I'm curious about is all of the people that we've brought onto the show so far have had a collaborative history with Dave, including myself. So I would love to know, what's the collaborative backstory with you guys?
Yeah, I just had to say this off the bat because, I did review all of our guests, and that was true. And it almost feel bad about that. It's just like, we need to find some people that I don't know once in a while, But I'm really happy to have Alex here today because both of you, and you probably don't even know this, both have musical collaboration past with me in some form or another. So maybe fill them in on what that looks like.
Okay, so me and Dave did live music together. How many years? 5-6 years ago?
Oh God!
No,
it was so long ago now.
I know it was longer ago than we were saying this earlier. I'm like, didn't feel like it was that long ago, but it's been longer than I think it feels. But yeah, I was doing a sort of solo project, doing like electronic music, and I'd sort of played around with my live set a little bit, but it was something that I don't know. I never felt great about it. I initially tried to do just the like backing track and me singing, since I'm also primarily just a vocalist, so I should also preface by saying that. And that just wasn't quite elevated enough for what I wanted for a live performance. It felt, it feels just somewhat karaoke doing it that style. And then I sort of did a small collaboration with 2 other musicians that were like had a metal backgrounds, and that was
I forgot about that.
That was an interesting experience. And we had played like 2 shows together back-to-back nights, and then that was that. So anyway, that's a long story, but yeah, not relevant. And then
totally relevant.
Totally relevant, but anyway. And then me and Dave started doing gigs together, and I don't even know how that really happened, to be honest with you.
That's funny. Yeah, like my brain is blanking on how did we meet.
I know, I don't actually remember. I think we met I don't know. I think I went to one of your old locations. I remember you were in this upstairs of like an old house at one point.
Yeah.
I went there at one point and I don't remember why. And I don't know. I don't remember when we actually met
mysterious.
though. Yeah, I'm like, I don't really remember how we met.
One of the
though.
running jokes for me is my recording studio has moved so many times.
Yeah.
That also sounds mysterious, by the way. The shifting one of Dave's random locations.
One of my random
So
locations.
somewhere in like an attic of like an old house.
Yeah, that was the one I had on Smith Street here.
Yeah, it was kind of downtown.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I remember that.
I had such a good time there. We had a whole creative hub there. We had a color correctionist.
Was that the
editor.
one by the Safeway?
No, that was a different one.
Different random
Yeah,
location.
Yeah. This one was more downtown, and it became like a hub. Like honestly, we had a band that was renting it out for jamming. We had a color correctionist. We had a video editor in there. We had like all kinds of people, and we just hung out in this house. Sometimes we'd be there all night.
Yeah.
Just creating stuff. It was wild.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. I remember going there. I honestly don't remember how we met. I always like to think back to my earliest memory of meeting someone, and I don't remember what ours is, unfortunately.
That's hilarious. I don't either. And not until this moment that I just realized that I don't remember that.
But yeah, we did the live thing, and then for a year maybe?
Yeah.
I don't remember how long it was. And then and I really liked how all of that came together. Like it was a cool way to like translate the music and all of that, especially because I did most of my songwriting with my like producer Jared Robinson at the time,
right?
So we were basically co-writing all my music together. So then it was cool to like have him sort of like sending pieces of the like beats and stuff to you, and then the way we like pieced it together for live was kind of fun. So yeah. No, I have a lot of good memories from that time. It was like the first time I really got to put my entire setup together to do pop music rather than like before that it had been a lot of rock bands, metal bands, things like that. But I was always gravitating towards synth pop at the time. I was collaborating with a lot of female vocalists at the time. Like it was really my thing at the time. So your music allowed me to test that out in a live setting, and I had talked to people a lot about this, about how I'm kind of done with bands. Like I want to do something a little more different, a little more interesting. And for me, it was one person setups, like I had pedals, I had piano, I had pads, I had all kinds of things going on. So it was like you're like a drummer performing multiple pieces at the same time.
What was your musical project called?
Xana was my artist name.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you have anything in the archives?
We have lots of stuff in the archives. We're just going to show a tiny clip here from a song called Paint that you and I performed live here in town once. And yeah, this was recorded on a camera by itself. So the audio is a little bit crude, but I love the visuals. So I just want to check. We'll take a peek at it. Here we go. All right, that was Paint. That was a clip from Paint.
That was awesome. Very cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. It's one of the things you didn't see in that clip very clearly. Oh, I guess for those of you listening, you didn't see anything.
Yeah. You have to imagine the blue smoky background.
Yes. And me as a silhouette behind Alex. The other thing is, so every time we performed that song live, Alex would wear this white shirt and would have paint hanging on by, and then suddenly would start painting herself, right? I think it was around the first chorus or something. Yeah.
That's really visually awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool.
I feel like, and I think a lot of the live setup for me was fun because I also have a dance background, which is something I wanted to mention as well. And like dance is so cool. Just like seeing the way you can, like portray the music visually. And so a lot of the ideas for my live set, I feel like were in a way very inspired by like things that maybe like I did in dance. There was actually, that was inspired by a couple girls I danced with did a duet where they did a similar thing. They started the dance with like paint in their hands, but they had their fists closed so you couldn't see. And then halfway through, and the song was called like, I think it was called Dirty Paws or something.
Oh,
Does
yeah,
that ring a
I
bell?
know that song. Yeah.
Yeah. And then at one point they started like putting their hands on each other's shirts and then they like spread the paint around. So I had this kind of idea with that too. I was like, oh, I should do something like that for my show. So I kind of like recycled the idea a little bit, but that's also just art.
Well, and then this really segues well into what we're going to talk about today, because I think one of the things that I always really appreciated about that project was how concerned you were with the visual aspect of it, right? Like you talked about the painting, the dancing, even just you had this light sign that would be behind us that said Xana. Like you did have a brand and a kind of a visual appeal to it. It wasn't just the music, right? So it's really cool to me that you got into another area of beauty. So Alex Paul Artistry, this is your current business, right? Tell us a little bit about that. What do you got going on there?
Yeah. So I've been doing this for 8 years, I think now, 7 or 8 years. And I sort of got into this, I almost like to say because I was doing music. So when I was doing music, I sort of had already decided I wasn't going to go to university or pursue secondary level education in any way. And so, yeah, I wanted to just like go fully in with music for a while and just kind of like give that a shot and see how it went. And I'm glad I did go like all in and just focus all my energy on that for a while. Because if I hadn't, I don't know if I like ever would have done it and would have always kind of had that regret.
Yes.
And so, yeah, while I was doing music, I was getting my makeup done for like some photo shoots that I had or events. And I was chatting with the makeup artist who was doing my makeup. And she sort of started talking about how she's like, well, I'm starting to train artists and I'm doing like makeup artist trainings. And she's like, like, and she kind of just threw it out there, which is kind of a cool way to market yourself in a way, is just totally picture your thing to someone being like, would you ever do this? Like you feel like you'd be good at this or whatever. And I was like, like if you had asked me when I was 6 years old what my dream job would be, was probably like a pop star or makeup artist. So
nice.
I'm like, I was like, yeah, of course I would love to do makeup, but I just never, like when I was still younger and like in high school and trying to figure out my life, I was like, well, that's not a real job. But then I was like, well, I'm not doing I'm an artist right now anyway. So what's the difference? I'm like, I'm doing music. I'm like, let's just do makeup. So yeah, that's what got me into it. And then I think a few months after I got certified as an artist, like makeup artist, I found kind of started getting into like the lash industry as well. Which I didn't think I would enjoy, to be honest. I thought it was really cool, and I was really like, I liked the service. What I do is called lash lifts. So it's not lash extensions. It's a little bit different, but I tried it on myself and loved it. And so I just was like, let's learn it and like see what happens. And now I actually I think I enjoy doing lashes and brows. Now I do brows too, a bit more than makeup, just because it's a little bit more low key. Your clients are laying with their eyes closed for like an hour and a half of your time. And so you really get to just like talk to people for like an hour and a half with no distractions. So I think that's like really why I love what I do, is because I just get to like talk to people all day and I like to talk.
One thing that I've experienced in hair salons and beauty parlors and things is the fact that it's almost like therapeutic in that aspect. You get to have these long conversations with oftentimes strangers, like people you're maybe not going to see very often or at all again. So I think that's as a recipient of that, it's a really special kind of relationship.
Well, and people joke with me, they're like, you should just like become a therapist and then you can double down on like therapy while you're like charged for both. I'm like, honestly, but yeah, it's cool. I feel like I get to like, talk about like hard things that people are going through, but I also get to hear like exciting things or trips or, weddings or life milestones and stuff. And like, especially my clients I've been with for years, you get to like see their life through the years and stuff too. So for me, it's more about the like relationship building and the connection piece. I find that's what I love about like the work that I do. But yeah, it's also so rewarding to be able to like make people feel beautiful and like be a part of big days. Like for weddings, I for makeup, I primarily do weddings. So you're, with someone on the biggest day of their life. And
Yeah.
there's also a lot of pressure that goes with that, I will say. So like sometimes there's the like anxiety and nerves and and a lot of that comes with it. But it's also really rewarding to like, make someone feel great on their special day. So yeah, that's a cool part of it too.
I have also worked weddings, filming them. Actually, quite often. That was a big part of my business years ago. So I totally relate to that anxiety about being there on somebody else's day and trying to make it special for them. And sometimes the bride and groom are not doing okay. Like sometimes so some of the weddings you go to, you're like, whoa, like this energy is not good. And they kind of take it out on the people who are trying to, help them throughout the day. And I don't blame them for it. It's a really stressful day. But then other times you get really like chill.
This would be like you see people in their true colors kind of thing, right?
Yes.
People are at their like kind of peak. They're stretched to their peak. So
Totally.
That's an insight into human psychology.
And somehow I always say like I've lucked out because people always ask me when I tell them I do like wedding makeup. The first question people say is like, oh, like you probably deal with all kinds of like bridezillas and like crazy. And I'm like, honestly, no. Like I would say I've had a couple tense, clients over the years or whatever, but like I've never really had anyone like off the rails, which is great. And I think it's because I'm a bit more laid back, and I also like I'm not booking super far out, like, and some of the like maybe potentially people who are a bit more like high strung or maybe trying to book their wedding like 2 years in advance or like, and I'm more like, let's like I'd rather book people a bit more last minute because they're usually pretty chill. So somehow I've managed to like attract this like really chill clientele, which is really nice. But
that's a really good thing to bring up though, about like just the way you carry yourself in your creative practice, right? And what that can do for others. I've found that in the music industry similarly, where as a music producer, if you're chill and you're not like stressed about the project going on, you can find that the artists you're working with will come down with you, and they'll be they'll perform a lot easier, right? They'll work a lot easier. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
One quick thing I want to touch on that you were talking about, how you always wanted to be either working in the beauty field or being a pop star, right? So where does that come from? Where like what was the spark for you for these kinds of things? Like what? If you remember, I mean, maybe
that's a good question.
You have to go way back. You have to go way back into your childhood.
Yeah,
probably, right?
I don't know. Like I think like dancing at a young age. Like I really enjoyed performing, and like I enjoyed being in the spotlight, which is also something that interestingly enough can like be portrayed in different ways, right? Like if you're someone who likes the spotlight, it's like, is that because you like the attention, or is it because you enjoy the like art and the like performing and the like creativity of all of it? So something else to think of, I guess, or something to ponder. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like I've always enjoyed that kind of work. I've always been really artistic and creative, and I think especially when I was thinking about what I wanted to do with my life, I always knew that it had to be something creative. Right. Just knowing that I could never see myself sitting in a desk and doing like a desk job kind of thing all day. I needed something that was going to be like creative and artistic. So I feel like that's kind of how I inevitably ended up doing the things I did. But
yeah, and you're like I can say this. I like to gush sometimes about people who are on, but you're one of these people who I know who. You just kind of put yourself out there and do these things, like you've had a lot of different, like you say, you were Xana, you were doing that, you have your current business. Like, it's like, you're kind of out there on your own, just trying to make a go of it. And a lot of people won't even do that, right? A lot of people get stuck kind of in their, just kind of in their own little situation and they don't go much further than that. And I think all three of us here are creative entrepreneurs. So I think we're all,
we actually talked about this in the last episode, and it's ringing a lot of bells because in the last episode we were talking about just what like peculiar things about creative people and what maybe you have to have a little bit more of a willingness to take risks, because if you're if you're in the safety of your office, it's probably a lot harder to take the risk and start that business, because whereas we're almost as artists conditioned to the risk taking aspect, like this might not pan out, this probably isn't going to pay the bills, but you got to kind of figure it out that way.
No, I like that you said that, because I also feel like something I've been struggling with even in the now is, well, and many times throughout my career at this point, but is that like imposter syndrome and the even like a lot of my business is trying to, like, I'm still working on building a strong clientele for myself. And a lot of that, I've been trying to crack the code on it of like, what do people want? Like, you know, if I go through slow seasons and I'm like, what is it? Like, is it me? And you sort of go through this spiral of like, in your head of like, am I not doing what people want? Like, why hasn't that person come back in a while? Or, you know, like, and the more I've thought about this over the past how many months, it's like, you know, even things like how you post your work online or how polished it looks or how, you know, the photo taking even can make a difference between, you know, you being booked up and maybe not, or how you show up online and that pressure to feel like I need to like be constantly blasting my page with videos and content and real. And that's just like the world we live in right now too with social media is like, you know, it's just like we're constantly bombarded with like sensory overload and like we're just like, you know, blasting our page with videos and that's all we see. And so that's something I struggle with is like, you know, I love the work I do, but like sometimes getting it to the point where you're actually making the money from it and getting the clients from it, it's like what it takes, at least to me right now, feels like sometimes it's a lot. And I don't always have the like energy or the battery to do the constant like being on social media and that side of it. So that's something I definitely struggle with, that like imposter syndrome and feeling like I'm not doing enough what I should be doing for my business and that kind of thing. So, yeah.
Well, and this is a bit of a tone shift, but speaking of social media, would it be possible via the magic of video to take a look at some of the work that Alex has done?
Yes, we can. So we're going to take a look at Alex Paul Artistry Instagram page. And you did recently say, so that this is your current page as of this moment during the podcast.
Yes.
But you're going to be shifting that, is what you're saying, right?
Yes. So this is my main page and business and everything right now. And it's funny because even as we're scrolling, I feel like there isn't like a lot of a theme happening here, but I've also like, for a while I was hiring out help for my social media because I don't like social media. And then that just wasn't really translating how I wanted it to. So now in the last few posts anyway, I've started taking over again and I'm trying to put more energy towards that. But I've decided I'm going to create a second account specifically for makeup work, since my lash and brow stuff is now a big part of what I do. That's going to be my focus here. And then I'm creating a new account called, this is the first time I've publicly said it. It's going to be called Project Face. And so that's going to be like a separate thing. And it's still affiliated with my name. It'll be, you know, Project Face by Alex Paul Artistry. But yeah, that's going to be my new baby for makeup and work like that.
Yeah, so I mean, this page, for those of you who are just listening, you know, it's showcasing a lot of the lash work you're doing, right? A lot of the brow work you do.
One thing I love about this, just as Dave's scrolling through it, is I love the naturalness that you're getting out of a lot of these these effects, like really beautiful eyelashes, very beautiful brows that feel, they feel like organic. They feel natural.
Yeah, and that was something that was really important to me when I started getting into the industry. It was always like, you know, I don't ever want to try to sell something or offer a service that I wouldn't get and like that I don't believe in. And so for me, I've never like, I don't love like eyelash extensions, and that's such a big trend. And when I started, that was really the big trend. Lash lifts were just starting. Like I only knew one other person who did lash lifts when I started. But that was also where I saw the market and I saw the niche, and I was like, you know, I think if I like work on this and like really build this, this could be something that I'm known for. So now I will say that like in the city, I have a fairly good reputation for the work I do for lash lifts and brows now as well. But brows I've actually only been doing for not even a year yet, crazy enough. So and that was one thing, even starting with brows again, I had that imposter syndrome of like, there's already so many people who do good eyebrows. Like, am I going to are people really going to come to me for eyebrows, or am I just going to get a few clients here and there? And, you know, I already had a pretty strong clientele for my lash lifts. And now it's like, I find in a week, probably 50% of my schedule is brows. Which is kind of cool. So it's a lot of lash and brows, and then makeup's definitely more seasonal. So you'll get more of that for weddings and that kind of work, like in the summer months for sure. Living where we live, it's, you know, the climate, it's definitely, weddings here are a shorter season, so it's a jam-packed shorter season, which is also where you need the other types of work to sort of like, you know,
you can't just rely on makeup.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I think that's a big theme for us in general when it comes to being creative entrepreneurs is there is a certain amount of like diversity that you need to build into your business often. In a community like this, especially because it's a smaller one.
Yeah.
And that, so you found an effective way to do that in the beauty industry by, like kind of dabbling in multiple pieces of it, right? And I don't know about you, but for me, I always find that when I have a little bit of diversity in my business, it helps me kind of stay interested too.
Yeah.
I don't, I'm not just kind of grinding out the same thing over and over again. It's like I get to take a break from one thing and
do another thing. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel, especially even just in the day to day. Like I had a day, I think last week where I had like a couple lash appointments, couple brows, and then a couple makeup, and I was like, this is like the perfect day. I'm like doing a little bit of everything. Like I kind of like doing it that way too, and just being able to switch gears, focus on something else for a little bit.
Yeah.
So what is it that you enjoy about doing makeup and lashes and things like this? What's the joy of that for you?
I feel like a big part of it is the like connection piece, just talking to people and like getting to build relationships with people. I'm definitely someone who's always been someone who like, I don't know how to, I'm like lost for words, but I like connection, and I've always like sought that out in my life. And again, when I originally thought of like, what do I want to do with my life? It was always like something creative or something artistic. Whereas now I feel like I'm even noticing the shift of like, if you ask me right now, like why I love what I do, it's not necessarily the creativity or the art side of it. It's the connection piece and the like conversations and that, like, that's kind of why I love the work that I do. And it's like the people, really. I feel like there's so many clients that are more friends than clients now that I've just gotten to know, and you really get to see kind of a different like side of people when they're, especially again with the lash and brow stuff, you're laying there with your eyes closed, no distractions, no phones. You're kind of just totally like this space to like close your eyes and almost be like meditative for that hour and a half. And some people like to sleep literally during their appointments or relax, which is kind of nice to give people that space too. But so many people just open up to you, even like the first time you met them, in a way that's kind of cool to like be able to also foster that space for people to like, you know, not necessarily like unload, but like a little bit, you know what I mean? Like open up in that way. So I think that's probably the biggest thing for me.
That's cool. Yeah, it's that connection piece, right? And I think that's a big part of art in general is you are wanting, like, even though you're doing it for yourself, like we talked about therapeutic art in the last episode, there is still this episode or this part of it that is about connecting to somebody else, right? Like expressing yourself to somebody else. I think the beauty industry is a really interesting field where this happens because we outwardly express ourselves into the world, and you know, in a lot of ways, you become a walking canvas everywhere you go, right? When you express yourself that way, now, whether it's with clothing, whether it's with beauty, whether it's with you know, any of that kind of stuff, even the way you carry yourself, right? So there is a certain art to even that. Like you're like a walking piece of art in the world, and I think that's a really fascinating piece of it. I'm curious about what, like, some of your thoughts about that. Like, obviously, I mean, I think everybody's engaged in this in some element or another, you know, whether or not it's makeup or whether or not it's modifications or whatever it is. You know, we're all kind of, we're interested in our appearance and how it.
Appearance is, in essence, it's social.
Exactly, right.
There's always going to be someone. It is communicative. There's no way to avoid that. Yes. People are always going to react to your appearance, whether you cultivate that appearance or not.
Yeah.
So I'm curious about some of your thoughts about like the art of that, and what are some of your philosophies around, you know, even how you would do it for yourself, or how you help clients figure out like how are they going to express themselves in whatever they're doing. Yeah,
it's interesting because I feel like, especially doing the work that I do, and again, like that social media side of it, where like most of the accounts I follow on my business page are all, you know, makeup artists or other artists, beauty artists, that kind of thing. And yeah, I feel like it also makes you really look at yourself almost in a way. And sometimes it almost can amplify that like comparison game, whether I'm comparing my art or my work to someone else's, or I'm comparing even just me to other people. But yeah, I feel like the way that we like look can make a big difference, or change the way we like see ourselves and see other people. But I also think, like, I feel like there's two sides to it, because it can be good and it can also be bad, right? Like it can be a positive thing, but it can be a negative thing too. And I think, I don't know. I like the work that I do in particular, because I try with makeup and with the lash and brow stuff, I try to, like you kind of mentioned, have things be a little bit more natural, I guess. And a lot of my clients love and are attracted to the lash and brow work I do because it's so natural and it's a natural enhancement. We're working with the natural hair. We're not adding any hair or anything like that. So we're working with what you already have to just sort of like elevate it, is how I like to say.
Right.
And then even my makeup work as well, I try not to do, I want to do what my clients want, but I feel like stylistically, I like to keep it a bit more simple and just like elevate. And yeah, even just those little things can make a big difference in the way that you see yourself and the way that other people see you. And a lot of my clients come back and tell me that they, like, oh, I got my lashes done and I've got so many compliments on them, or people can tell like, oh, so you look different, but they don't know what it is. And so it's kind of cool to be like, you're working with what you naturally have, like your own lashes and your own brows or whatever, but you're just sort of like elevating it in a way that can help you sort of like change the way you see yourself and have that confidence shift too.
So it sounds like you're, in a lot of ways, your philosophy is about enhancing what people already have and kind of bringing that out. Yeah, which is a really cool approach. Yeah, I do appreciate that. That's subtle.
Well, it's sort of like if you're thinking about if you're wearing nice clothes that fit you well, it sort of just carries that idea up through your face in a way, because people respond. I mean, we probably all had this experience, right? Where depending on how you look, people respond to you differently, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So if I'm, wearing sweatpants with messy hair, people are going to respond to me differently than if I'm more polished.
Yeah.
So a lot of that feedback that people get from other people is maybe just, I don't know, is it like the face equivalent of just wearing nice clothes? Is it sort of just an extension of that idea?
Like, I'm like, that's actually such a good way to put it. Because I agree. Like, if you're like polished, like I feel like that's a good word that I use to describe my makeup work, especially, is like, I like to say it's polished and it's timeless and it's, it's still like natural, but bringing out a little bit more. So yeah. And I totally agree about like kind of same idea, like what you wear or how you do your hair and all those things can change the way that people see you. And I think, even sometimes those little things can be, I think the little subtle things are kind of nice because it's still you and it's still natural, but it's just like elevated and polished. And I think that's how a lot of people want to feel. Yeah. And I find with beauty, like there's so many different trends too, but right now we're in this sort of like era of more embracing the natural. Like a lot of the makeup artists I follow that are really big, like it's more about, they'll maybe do like still a face of makeup, but then they'll go back and they'll sort of darken the freckles after. So it looks more like that, like skin within. And a lot of people are going more, makeup is more glowy now. Like we want it to look almost like that natural oil is coming through. Like you want it to feel very like, very subtle. And same with like lashes and eyebrows, like brows, especially, as we know, they change a lot over the years from like the 90s brow trends to like the
skinny pencil brows, right?
And like a lot of the people actually that are coming now are like trying to like correct that work. And so I specialize in brow shaping to try and like reshape and like find a new flattering look sort of for your brows. And even that like totally changes the way your face looks, which is interesting because brows do really change your face. You've seen those pictures of celebrities where they like take off their eyebrows and then put
bleach
them, or like
or
bleach
whatever.
them or something, just to like even like edit them out just to show you the difference. And it's so true. Like a lot of my clients, they come to me specifically for the brow shaping work so that they can sort of like have a little brow makeover, I guess. And it changes a lot about the way that you look or people see you too.
This is I don't want to get like far afield, but one thing that I'm wondering about, maybe this is just like a practical tip you could share with us for someone, male or female, who's listening to this, who's like, wow, I didn't know brows change my face shape that much. I just like, wake up in the morning. I don't do anything with my eyebrows. I might comb my hair. I might put on a nice shirt, but my eyebrows are just doing whatever they do. Do you have any recommendations on how like, someone could maintain their eyebrows so they have that look of polish? Again, this applies to men too, because if your eyebrow hair grows really long or what can we do to...
I was gonna say that's something else that I want to get into more too about the fact that like a lot of people think the work that I do is like totally geared towards women, I guess, and primarily that's basically like 99.9% of my clientele. But yeah, like I think it's something that those little things you can still change for anyone to like sort of elevate the way you feel. Like my boyfriend lets me do his eyebrows now and he feels really good when they're done. Like he will tell me, he's like, I think I need them done again. Like the hairs are starting to grow in. And I'm like, okay, like,
Yeah,
and he
I saw
feels
him on
really
your page
good.
there. Yeah, he was on the page.
Yeah, I posted a picture of it.
He showed up. Yeah.
Yeah. He like feels really good. Like it, and I'm glad because I was a little worried like the first time. I'm like, what if he hates it, or what if I don't want him to feel like insecure in a way
Right.
for any reason. Like I don't know. Like, but no, he like loves it, and yeah, I think I don't know. That's a hard question. I mean, even just as simple as like brushing them every day could help, like just brushing them into place. Because a lot of times you wake up and they're kind of all over the place. Even just like something as simple as like brushing them into place can make a big difference, especially for people who want their brows styled really naturally. But honestly, like going to a good brow artist is, I would say like come see me, but like go to a good brow artist in your area and you know, someone that you can trust and you like their work, and they'll know, like if you talk to them. Like I always do a consultation at the start of all my services, especially with brows, because it is so personal and people really like their brows a certain way. And, you know, I really talk with my clients about that. Like, what do you like about your brows? What don't you like? Or what do you want to change? Or what are your goals? And all my clients like fill out a form before they see me, and I ask even questions on there to sort of help with the consultation part. And, you know, like I say, like, do you prefer more of an arch in your brows? Are you working towards making them fuller? And like, we kind of talk about all those things so that when I'm doing the service and the shaping, we can actually, you know, fine tune like what you want from your brows. So, yeah.
And it's worth underlining too that this can make a really big difference with how men as well as women are perceived, because my boyfriend also like takes a little bit from the top, because if he doesn't, his face looks kind of angry just by default, because he gets this really like thick upwards arch.
Yeah, he's got almost like the really arch brow, and then he almost takes a little bit off the top just so it's
just because it makes him look nicer. And it's such a it's like a small physical difference that has a huge impact on how other people again perceive him and react to him in the world.
Totally. Yeah. No, it's so true. I feel like little things like that, and eyebrows are like such a big one too, because it's just like the lashes make a big difference too, but brows especially, like, you know, the difference between how your brows are shaped.
If someone sees you as friendly or frightening, right?
Yeah.
Really just that.
Totally, yeah. And they really like frame your face in a way too, that when they're freshly done and they're, you know, nice and crisp and everything and they're balanced, like it looks so different. So
I have to throw in there that, like, you know, as a young guy who was a goth, I would purposely do my brows and stuff in a way that was intimidating and intentionally like off-putting.
You're like, I want to send a message here.
That's my history. But and I did want to touch a bit on that, because you did mention about, you know, there's kind of a dark side and then there's a positive side, and I think that goes for almost any artistic expression. We've talked about this on the show before, about how, you know, you can get so obsessed with or so almost drowning in your art that it can actually hurt you in some ways, right? And I think there's a parallel there I see with beauty, where it's kind of similar, where there's, you know, there's all these like social kind of pressures that we experience. There's a lot of self-consciousness we can experience, a lot of things that sometimes we can try to almost compensate for in beauty, right? But then there's also like a healthy side to it that I've heard. I've actually looked into research prior to this episode because I was curious. And there's a lot of research to talk about how the use of cosmetics, the use of just modifying your appearance in general can actually improve your mental health if applied in a way that's, I guess, not obsessive or not, you know, not about trying to
feel like a deficiency.
Exactly. So I'm curious what your experience is with that, and because I personally, I'm of the opinion that I think it's really healthy to take care of ourselves and to really worry about our appearance in a way, because it is kind of like polishing ourselves. It's taking care of ourselves, you know, as long as it's not about what other people are thinking all the time, and it's more about how do I want to look, you know, how do I feel good. Yeah.
No, I agree. And I think like anything, there's like a balance to it, I guess.
Right.
Like I think doing those things can be really healthy for people. But if you maybe do get to the point where you find you're like obsessive about it and you're hyperfixating on all your little imperfections and you want to change everything about the way you look, like that's where it can go down that kind of dark road. And that's something where even lately with myself, I feel like I've been kind of like walking that line a little bit, where I can tell I've been like, I'm close to 30 and I'm starting to notice little changes in the way I look. And it's like something I've been reading into about the peaks of aging, how we go through peaks in our life of aging, and one of them is around 30, where you sort of wake up one day and you're like, oh, I don't recognize myself. And so I've been sort of battling with that part of it too, of like feeling a little bit different, I guess, in my own skin just by little changes I've noticed. And yeah, I'm like sort of trying to do some research and like, okay, like, should I change my skincare a little bit, or should I like, wear a little bit different makeup or do something differently with with my face? And so I've been, like trying to look into some of those things and like work on little things that can make me feel better at this transition sort of in my appearance, but while not letting it consume me or like go off the deep end of like, okay, I want to like change, a lot about the way I look. Cause I also think we have to like embrace those changes too a little bit. So it's like, aging is like a whole thing too to talk about. But yeah, I feel like with aging especially, that's something that a lot of people struggle with. And a lot of my clients especially that come to me talk about that too. Like, they'll say like, oh, like I had really long lashes and like, I don't know what happened to them. And I'm like, no, like as your collagen, as your hormones change and your collagen, lowers, like that can change too. And we talk about it. And but it is hard for people sometimes to like, even, grasp the like aging and just how you can change. And this is the first time in my life I'm starting to notice like I'm aging, so it's like really kind of like hitting me a little bit lately.
I was gonna say, well, as someone who's much closer to 40 than 30, definitely I've had similar experiences to you where you don't really have any choice but to roll with it in some way. Like there's some degree to which you can fight the reality that's upon you. You can I don't know, you can wear sunscreen every day, and you can use like retinol or other products like that, right? But it's tough to come to terms with your exiting your hot girl phase, perhaps. And I'm not going to suggest that either one of us are anywhere near that.
That's great.
Funny.
That's great.
But honestly, and even like, well, it's funny because I'm like almost 30 and I feel like I have a couple years, but
I think you have a longer runway than that.
But I'm almost in other ways though. I'm like excited to enter my 30s because I feel like your 30s, you're like, and maybe I'm wrong, I'm not 30 yet, but
they're so good.
Yeah, your 30s are good because you kind of like have a little bit more money. Your life is like a little bit more stable in some ways. I mean, if you have kids and stuff like that too, then you have to navigate that journey. But like, I feel like socially it maybe chills out a little bit, and you're like your lifestyle gets a little bit more relaxed, and you've got maybe deeper friendships at that point, and you're making more money. And I'm like said the money thing a few times because that's what I'm waiting for here. Get to my 30s where I'm financially thriving and I can like afford my life. We're manifesting it. But yeah, I feel like I'm like kind of excited for my 30s in a lot of ways too.
I think you should be.
And that's why I try not to like, and that's where I'm like, okay, like yes, my face is changing a little, and yes, I'm noticing these differences and like how I'm just aging, and we're supposed to do that, but yeah, I mean, people always say too, it's like a gift to be able to age. And I think that's also a thing I like to remind myself when I, hyperfixate on these things. I'm like, no, it's a good thing. Like, and this is going to be a good chapter of my life, like the heading into that era. So
related to sort of the, perhaps some of the darker side of being obsessive about your appearance versus just using it as expression and maybe going down those dark rabbit holes of never being happy with the way you look. What do you think about the rampant use of things like Facetune and stuff like that in terms of how people see themselves?
Well, and that's something that, I find has been a frustration of mine since I've started, because I know, and like, it's crazy because I can see it, especially because I know what like a face-tuned photo would look like, or like an edited photo like to that extreme would look like. But some people don't know. So, like when I was getting into the industry, there was accounts I'd follow that would post pictures that were, in my opinion, quite clearly edited to an extreme. Like it's one thing to edit your lighting and edit the, shadows and maybe brighten a couple things and like, those small touches to enhance the image. But if you're like making the lips fuller and you're slimming or like doing things where you're distorting the actual person, especially if it's a photo of your client, which some people do that. To me, I just don't love that, because it's like, I mean, I guess if the client actually gives you consent or permission to do that, but part of that is like, should we be doing that to like our clients' faces while we're posting them online? And also like, is that like a proper way to like market the work that you do and like as a creative when you're editing and distorting the images so much?
And also like setting a realistic beauty standard too. I'm part of a subreddit community, which it's like 30s plus skincare or something like that. And there's a lot of women on there who post a picture of their face super up close and like, how do I fix this? And it's like, you have beautiful skin. That's exactly what skin should look like. It's like, you know, I can see your pores. That's so there's I think maybe this kind of unrealistic beauty expectation has been with us since like long before Facetune though. I mean, this is magazines and everything as well, which are photoshopped to oblivion, and then people's skin is essentially just like plastic.
And I almost would argue that that era was almost worse because it was all like you were consuming everything media-wise mostly, you know, before we were obsessed with our phones and Instagram and all that. It was a lot of it was like in a magazine or on TV, and things would be so like perfect.
Right.
And we still see a lot of that with online because it is so easy to like make a photo of yourself look flawless, or of your work. But I also see, you know, there's also then the flip side of that where you get a lot more content creators now who are doing the trends where they're posting close-ups of their pores and their acne and they're like, this is what real skin looks like, or their body fat and that kind of stuff. Like there is so many more of those accounts coming up too, where it's like you'll still always have both ends of the spectrum, but I think it's cool that social media has also sort of shifted to like this like era of being a bit more real and unfiltered. And even for myself, that's something I try to do if I'm like talking on my story one day or posting a video of myself. I don't use filters for the most part, maybe once in a blue moon, but I really try not to do that because even that can totally change the way that you see people and like if they recognize you in person. One of my big influences with the work I do, she is my sort of lash mentor, and she has grown an incredible career for herself, and she's got like hundreds of thousands of followers now, and she's kind of revolutionizing the lash lift industry, which is really cool that I get to like sort of learn and work from her. And she's doing this worldwide. She's now traveling all over the world doing masterclasses and stuff, and she's based out of Toronto. But that's one thing she talked about a lot because she used to go on her stories and would always have filters on, and that's how I remembered seeing her. And then it wasn't until I sort of realized like one day that, oh, she's like stopped doing that, and she's not all done up in her stories. She's just kind of like no makeup, and she looks great, but yeah, she shared that with us as a team of trainers. She said, you know, like that's one thing I wanted to change because I would go to conferences or I would go teach a masterclass and people would kind of look at me like, I think that's Uli, but they didn't know if it was her for sure. And so it was really important to her that like, if my whole business is based on me building this relationship with my audience, they need to like know who I am when I see them in person. And it's so true because how many times do you see someone even in your city or whatever and you're like, I think I know that person, but like, and I think we follow each other online, but you're like maybe not sure if it's them. And just depending. I mean, even me, it's like, I joke that sometimes I'm a catfish because I'll like walk around in my sweatpants like 90% of the time and I'm not done up. But then, you know, my Instagram photos of me, I'm like, oh, I'll post like the nicer ones, right? So it's like, we all do that to a certain degree. But yeah, it's like, where's the line between like, is it good taking it too far? Is it like, you know, or like, do you try to lean into being a bit more real online?
Yeah. There's a lot of parallels in other art forms, you know, like I think the thing that came to mind was the auto-tune in music, right? Where it's, you know, now in music, if you don't hear auto-tune, it's odd. It's, you know, like most popular, you know, trendy music has auto-tune. And so anytime you hear somebody singing without it, it's like, oh,
the sound is the style.
Yeah. And it's almost like our ears have become so used to just hearing pitch perfect stuff that it's hard to almost digest sometimes things that aren't. It would kind of be similar to that, right? Where it's like auto-tuning your face, right? And then people kind of have this expectation that that's what they should see all the time. That's what they should experience
and so many,
in real
like,
life, you know.
And musicians too, so many of them have that, their like style is based on the like the way they tune it. Like Charlie XCX and her, I'm into her music right now, and I'm into the whole Brat Summer thing. I'm like, do you know what I'm talking about? Okay, cool.
Brat, yes.
Yeah, and like her music too, like when you listen to it, you're like, oh yeah, like she does that thing to her voice, and like all of her songs pretty much, that's just like her signature thing. So it's like, yeah, and I guess that's part of it too, right? It's like, is it sometimes it's just like a stylistic choice or like something you choose as an artist, or is it, you know, something that like, yeah, I guess if people heard her sing not like that, they'd be like, who are you? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, so it kind of applies to the beauty industry a little bit. Because you're right, because you can use it stylistically. You can use these types of tools.
Yeah, because even like if I'm posting photos of my makeup, I do edit in a specific way, and I try to keep it consistent with all my edits so that, you know, like they look similar and whatever. And I will like, and especially now I've been, I took a new social media workshop,
cool.
and I'm learning how to edit sort of the photos of the eyes better, especially when it's just someone's like eyeball on my feed. It can be such a like an eye-catching literally picture to have on your feed. So I've been like working with like brightening the eye colors, and, you know, like I'll just specifically on the color of the eye, I'll brighten it, and I'll make it a little bit more blue and that kind of stuff. So it's obviously I'm editing those a little bit maybe more heavily than I would normally, or edit other photos of someone's full face. But it's also kind of cool to see it highlight the lash work I do in a way of like having the eye to sort of like frame the photo. And yeah, so it's more of like an artistic choice, I feel, and a little bit of like a way to market your work too by making the eyes look extra pretty. But yeah, it's kind of, I guess that's interesting to discuss, is like, is it like whether it's like stylistic choice, or if you're going maybe too far with editing to the point where it's unrealistic.
One thing I'd like to comment on, if you'll go on this slight detour with me, but I'd be really curious to hear your thoughts on it, is the subjective nature of beauty, and how there's this, perhaps there's styles and trends and things that we sort of collectively agree are good or bad. Things we've seen this over time with how we view weight, for example, and how it's portrayed, where in the 90s it was like, you know, very, very skinny was the kind of main look, or there's probably a lot of other examples. But there is an aspect to which beauty is, or perception of beauty is super subjective. And I find this to be really interesting compared to other things that we tend to make judgments about. So if we're making a moral judgment, or if we're making even a cognitive judgment, if I say the Earth is flat, you're probably going to have a reaction to me like, okay, you're unreasonable. That's an unreasonable opinion. I can cite a lot of facts that would, you know, prove you wrong. Or if I made, you know, if we started having arguments about the morality of abortion or something, these kinds of conversations really pit people against each other because one side views the other as unreasonable. Probably with the flat Earth thing, I think it's not a two sides kind of situation. One person is clearly unreasonable.
There's one guy in town who drives around. I don't know.
There's the one guy around here. He's really into it. Yeah.
Anyway.
Nice. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
So I guess my point is the interesting thing about aesthetics as compared to our kind of intellectual ideas or our moral ideas is that we do have strong opinions on them. We do make judgments about them. But there's a sense to which if I say that's beautiful and you don't agree, I don't think you're unreasonable.
Yeah.
Because there's a way in which I can recognize that our perception of beauty is going to be subjective.
Yeah.
And I know I just threw a bunch of words at you, but I'm just curious if that makes you think of anything or
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's interesting too, because I feel like the way that like things that I don't like about myself, I might like about someone else. Like even I have a crooked nose, and it's something I've always been super insecure about, and I always felt like, oh, like no one else has a crooked nose like I do, or I don't know. And then especially now that I'm doing brows, and part of the brow mapping I do, we're basically doing like the face, almost like someone called it face geometry, and I'm like, that's so true. We're doing like, you know, specific measurements on the face to figure out how to make the brows symmetrical and if they line up. And something I noticed while I'm doing these like measurements is that most people have one eyebrow that is higher than the other. It's usually just because your muscle pull is a little stronger on that side, which you could technically correct with Botox or things like that if you wanted to, but that's just very natural to have that like one eyebrow a little higher. And then also like so many people's noses do lean one way or the other as well. Like honestly, maybe like more people than I thought. I would maybe notice it on some cases in people when I would do makeup and stuff, but especially with brow work now, I really notice it. And I'm like, that's one thing, both of those things actually I notice about myself and don't love, but it's not like I notice them about anyone else really in the same way. And like, I don't hyperfixate on that with someone else the way you do about yourself. So even that's, you know, interesting how we are like that. Like things that we don't like about ourselves, we might like on someone else. Or like a lot of people, like some people hate their freckles. Some people are like, oh, I love freckles, and like will tattoo them on their face so they have fake freckles. Like, you know, and it's like technically it's like skin damage, but like it's like for a lot of people that's the thing they want. So yeah, it's so interesting how that is. And
I might hate my own crooked teeth, but with someone else, it's like it's the very thing that I love about their face, or things like that.
Yeah. And I also saw or read once that you know, if we actually looked perfectly symmetrical, like our faces looked perfect, it gives you like an eerie feeling
like
about
an alien
person.
look or something.
Because it's like an AI type like like unrealistic thing where like something in your back of your brain, it almost does that uncanny valley thing where something in the back of your brain is like, that's not right.
That's not right.
So you need like those little asymmetries in your face to like for your brain to be like, that's human. And this is like, I don't remember, I think I heard it in a reel, but I was like, that's very true. I feel like, the way that we see people, we almost need those imperfections to know that they're like a real human.
Yeah.
So one of the last things that we wanted to talk to you about was being in the beauty industry. You probably have some thoughts about gender and what's considered acceptable for, I mean, again, since your clientele is largely women, I'd just be curious to hear about what, I guess how you're thinking about gender and how it's, how it collides with the beauty industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this is something I actually it was in the back of my mind when we were talking earlier about, how people perceive you and that kind of thing and how the work I do can sort of enhance the way you feel. I do have a small percentage of trans clients that come to me, and it's been really, really cool to have sort of a few people going through that transition trust me to help them as a part of their transition. And recently, one of my trans clients that came to me, she actually, she also is she's a content creator, and she's kind of involved with that world. And she posted a video online after of her brow reveal, and she loved it. And it was so cool to see that on her page and stuff. But she did talk about that. She said that a lot of people say that getting your brows done for the first time as a trans woman is like a really big part in your transition and can almost change your face as much as like facial surgery can. And so to have someone like trust me with that transformation is really cool. So, and I'm a queer person too, so like that's also something that I didn't really mention yet, but to me it's really important that my space is inclusive and open to anyone, whether you're just like a man who wants to clean up his eyebrows or whatever, or maybe not, maybe you want to do a full brow transformation. Like there's no like right or wrong way to go about it, like for anyone. And I do have like a couple male clients. I do have a few like trans clients that come to me and trust me with that too. And it's really cool to be able to, like be a part of that for someone and just help people feel good in their skin, no matter who you are coming in through my doors. So that's been a big thing in my business, is just making sure I communicate that well with my audience as well, from the language I use when I post things about, I posted my boyfriend's eyebrows before and after, and I was typing up the caption, and I was going to put like man brows, like here's how, like, if you're a man and you want your brow, and then I was like, wait, why does that have to be like man brows? And then I was like, no, like, and then so then I changed the caption and I was like, natural brow grooming. If you're someone who wants just a very subtle cleanup and subtle change, this is like the brow for you kind of thing. And so even just those little things, like maybe people don't notice it, but to me, it's important that I make sure that I communicate that like gender doesn't really have to be involved with any of the work I do. Although, like I said, most of my clientele are women. I think like makeup doesn't have a gender, nor does like eyebrows or lashes.
Right,
like it doesn't need to be gendered, even though obviously throughout the years, I feel like there's been a strong like female presence with that world. But even now I feel like a lot of makeup artists I follow online are male, or there's all kinds of people in the industry. And it's kind of, I feel like people are getting, especially like men are starting to move towards maybe not like they don't take care of themselves, but like, maybe like looking for those little subtle enhancements and stuff too, that maybe typically wouldn't. And then, like especially for my trans clients and trans community, I love to be able to have a safe space for people and to really be able to help them like see that transition on their, see their transformation on their own face. Like that's a really rewarding part of what I do. And some days are hard being an artist and being an entrepreneur, as we know. So I feel like when I have clients like that and days like that, where someone's super grateful that I've helped them see themselves the way they want to be seen, to me is like so rewarding. And it's like, okay, this is why I do what I do. Like, I love this
one
work.
thing that ties back to what you were saying earlier about one of the favorite parts of your job is making that connection with people and having those like personal moments with them. And related to what you were just saying about sort of, I guess I'm thinking about this toxic masculinity, which makes it difficult for a lot of men to allow themselves to be open to these kinds of experiences because of societal pressures. I just think about how wonderful an experience it is, or it could be, for a lot of men to be able to have that kind of connection that is super common for women, but often very difficult for men to access.
Totally.
Just being able to have like that safe space, that like lack of judgment, that closeness with another person that isn't just the same as like going to the mall or whatever.
Yeah,
Right,
no,
right.
exactly. Because even, well, and I watch a lot of like TikToks of these amazing barbers that do like before and after
Yeah.
hairstyles on men. Like I get a lot of those on my page because it's crazy what a difference a good haircut can make. And it's kind of the same to me with everything else. But yeah, it's a lot less, like, of course we promote men getting a good haircut because it can, clean up the way you look and make you people perceive you as, like if you've got a shaggier haircut or if you've got more of like a clean cut, like it might just change the way that you're seen and also make you feel maybe different about yourself. But yeah, then I feel like, why is it that, but we say that they can't groom their brow hair or their lashes or take care of their skin. Like, it's like that weird stigma around that. And like you said, the like toxic masculinity where a lot of men feel like it somehow has something to do with their sexuality and that's a negative thing and like all of those, that whole can of worms. But it's been cool, like I said, doing my boyfriend's eyebrows, and a green flag on our relationship because I do his eyebrows and I was nervous that he wouldn't like it because he may somehow perceive it as being feminine or being a gay thing to do, right? Like people make those associations, and no, he loved it. He was like, oh, I do feel better, and like people have noticed my eyebrows at work and like or have commented on it, and he like feels more confident. And that's like what I think more people should be after, is like making those little changes that make you feel good regardless of who views it as what. Like as long as you feel good, then do the thing, you know what I mean?
That's probably like the best way to wrap up this whole idea of the dangers of certain things versus the positives is, it's a personal thing, right? And I mean, going back to the trans thing as well, that's where a lot of the research talks about the body modifications having the most posive impact, right?
That's what I was thinking too.
Right. Yeah. And so again, I think it's a very individualized thing, beauty, and it's like only the individual themselves can really identify what's positive for them and what's negative for them.
Totally. What's affirming, I guess, too, is the word you could use. Yeah, that's so true. And yeah, that's something I've been just realizing more and more with the work that I'm doing and like the clients that are coming to me, and whether you're maybe just a little bit, some of my older clients find that when they get their brows done, it feels like they have a little facelift and they love that. Or maybe you're someone trying to feel better in your own skin, and whoever you are, maybe you're someone who's transitioning or maybe you're not. But if it's just something that helps you feel more like yourself or more like the person that you see yourself as being, I think that's really cool to be able to use these things that I do, like beauty services and things like that, to kind of get you where you want to be. So, yeah.
So, I'd love to wrap up today with an artist spotlight. If there's anyone that you would like to recommend, anyone we should check out, basically the floor is wide open for whatever you can think of in that context. But I'd love to hear.
I kind of touched on her already a little bit when I was talking about social
Toronto,
media. Yeah. So she's my like lash lift mentor, I call her. Her Instagram is Lash Mother Uli, and she is like basically single-handedly revolutionizing the industry, which is crazy. And it's even crazier that I get to work with her in a small capacity, but she's sort of trained me, and I work for the company that she's affiliated with. And then I've spent several days with her and time with her, and even being around her is kind of wild to me just because she's like my idol. But yeah, she's like a world-renowned lash lift educator at this point, I would say, is how to describe what she does. So she's really helping change and improve and grow the industry single-handedly. And all of her work is science-based, which is really cool. So a lot of the lash stuff and the work that we do with chemically treating the hair and changing the lash structure is really science-based. And so she basically helps to like I don't know, uncover the mysteries of other lash companies. I feel like, before she did this work, it was a lot of the companies would just sort of give you a training, and it didn't really make sense, and it wouldn't turn out, and all of us lash artists were just really confused, and it wasn't really working, and we weren't monetizing off of it enough. And then she sort of came along and was like, surprise, all of the lash industries are actually doing the same thing. They're just marketing their products differently. It's like makeup, right? Like you have a million different makeup brands. Are they really that different, or is it just branding? It's the same with lash industry and lash products. And so she's sort of doing her piece to help you really understand the science behind what you're doing to the hair, so that you can use any product you want and like feel confident in that. So anyway, her work's really good. Her content's also really good. That would be who I would recommend to check out. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
All right. We're just getting ready to wrap up. We do have somebody in the chat saying hello. Thank you for joining us there quick. And if you've been lurking the whole time, we appreciate it. we are going to wrap this episode up. And it's been great.
Hop right on to the second if you want to stick around.
Yes. Don't go anywhere because there will be a second episode on the live stream.
So just where can we find you? I know you mentioned earlier you have a new Instagram account you're starting. If you want to plug your existing one as well, let us know.
Okay,
and we'll drop that in the what is it? The text that the video text.
the podcast notes. The
podcast notes.
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Or do you want me to say it?
Yeah, no, you should totally say
plug
it.
Your stuff. Yeah. Plug your stuff. That's what they do with you.
So yes, Alex Paul Artistry is my main hub for my lash and brow work now. And then for makeup, my page is going to be called Project Face. I think my underscore is at the start. So underscore Project Face, I think was the way I could make that happen. I've just been having some technical difficulties getting it up and running. So if you're listening live today, it may not be up, but depending when you're tuning in, hopefully you can find me that way too.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it was lovely chatting with you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on.
It's always great to have you
my first time.
Yeah. We'll have to have you back. We say this to everybody, but it's true. Like I think there'll be more time to talk to people.
Well, by the time we get to like episode 150, it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. We'll have to have like roundtable discussions. Like I think I'd like to have you back to. Well, actually, I want to just say this quick before we wrap up: is go check out Alex's music too. It's still online.
Where does
it's still out there in the world.
Still out there, yeah.
Everywhere. It's on Spotify, iTunes. Is that what they call it still? Apple Music, I guess. I don't know.
I don't know.
iTunes,
Apple Music,
I don't know either.
iTunes seems dated, but you know what I mean. I think SoundCloud is still. It's probably still on there somewhere too. It's out there.
It is. Yeah,
it's out
Very
there.
cool.
Yeah,
I'll
cool.
put that in as well.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, okay. So for those of you who are on the live stream, we will be back. We're going to take a bit of a break so we can transition here. And for those of you listening, this is the end of the episode. So thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for checking out this episode of The Creative Coliseum. We'll see you next time. The Creative Coliseum is mixed and edited by David Roman. Executive producers are Alicia Van Betju and David Roman. Gear support provided by Roman Empire Studios. Theme music created by Roman Music YQR. Recorded live on location in Regina, Canada, Treaty 4 territory. Voiceover performed by Sundance Robson. Logo design provided by Danielle Austin. Special thanks Kyle Parkinson, Laura Posadka, and Rob Hillstead. The Creative Coliseum is a Nerd Party entertainment production in conjunction with Piano TV. Now get back out there and conquer your creativity.